that are continuing in the Magnificent Men performances. That were in the Magnificent Men, Tom Payne and myself, with Class Act featuring Rita. So that kind of clarifies where we are with who's doing what from the Magnificent Men. I call it, it's like a prodigal group that we work with them from time to time after the Magnificent Men at one time or another. The impact of COVID, a lot of bands lost a lot of work. Some bands broke up, some bands changed personnel. But it did have an impact on work. We're slowly recovering. I talked to Jerry Glavin last week out of Philly for about 20 minutes. He'd like to bring us into the Kimmel Center. We'll see if that ever materializes, I'm not sure. One of his questions is if you come into the Kimmel Center, he said I can give you about 25 minutes. That's called a spot. When you're not doing the whole night, you're just doing a spot. I'm there with other artists from the 60s. And he said, I'd like you to start off with some Class Act material, have a reader, feature reader, and some of the other singers and artists, or musicians. He also said, would you mind on Peace of Mind and Stormy Weather, we have an orchestra for all the other artists. You're the only band self-contained like you've always been. Would you mind if we added in the strings and the horns? And I said, no. For those two songs. So I said, how do you suppose we'll work that out? I do have all the charts from the sessions. Let's see. A little more to cover here. Sorry, I might be running over a little bit, but I do have to cover this. Magnificent Men documentary. People have been hearing about this for years. Originally, this was something that was the brainchild of a guy named Dave Zang. Dave Zang was a professor of history out of Townsend, Maryland, and he had just retired, I guess, about, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Anyway, for about the last 15 years, Dave has had this project. He started out by interviewing all the Magnificent Men and other people, and our management firm and so forth, former management firm. He started researching everything. He was a Magnificent Men fan. He did put it together. He did put a video version of it together, which was very well done. And he then started to pursue the presentation of that, the release of that. We negotiated with WITF, but they weren't interested. They said they didn't think they'd have the market in Pennsylvania for a Magnificent Men TV show. I felt differently, but anyway, that didn't happen. But then there was a second version of the video that was produced where there's some additions to it, where we included some of the members of the former groups that were the Magnificent Men came from. That was some of the guys in the Delaware, some of the guys in the Andells, and that was incorporated. And my wife and I and some of the people from Class Act. So that was the second video version of it. Well, what had happened is during the process of all this about 10 years ago, the publishing rights, the performing rights, and the writing rights all legally changed, which had an impact on the cost to put out this documentary on video. What would have cost Dave about 10 grand at that time, then suddenly changed to, I think, approximately 50 grand to put that out. He just, wasn't able to do that. What has happened at this point in time, and here again, Mike Davis is involved with working with Dave Zang on the production of a podcast of that video, because it's a lot less costly to put on a podcast. So we're hoping that gets out sometime soon. They've been working, a lot of tenacity there, staying with this thing after all these years, and I really appreciate that. But I hope that will happen sometime soon. did want to mention a little bit here about last night featuring Rita. As I said, my wife and I have had this group since 1980, and I did want to mention that some of my players are here tonight. I think Bennett Williams is here. I saw him earlier, my guitar player. And is Denny here?
No, I didn't see Denny.
All right, I thought Danny DeFrank might be here. He's our bass player. And our keyboard player is Sean Kreiner. And our Tom Payne is our sax player. Jeremy Railing is our trumpet player. And so we're still performing, and we're going to continue to perform, and we're trying to make it better than ever. A lot of work involved here coming back, but we're going to do it, and we're doing it. I did want to mention two things. This is a book called Joyride. A couple years ago, a woman named Kimberly Roberts, she works in one of the newspapers in Philadelphia. I think it's the Black newspaper. No, I don't recall the name of it. But this is about all the artists that performed at the Uptown Theater in concert. And she interviewed all the artists that worked there. And it's pretty interesting. There's pictures and information about that. We're in it. She interviewed me for over 3 different occasions, and we got 3 pages out of it. So it's got a nice picture of us and tells a little bit about our experiences at the Uptown Theater. And if you're interested, you can go online and get it. It's called Joyride by Kimberly Roberts.
Bob,
Yes?
is that the one you were autographing and somebody came up and wanted your autograph?
Yeah.
Tell that story, if you would. I'm sorry. Please.
Okay.
Now, I think Bob's a very humble individual. Doesn't really let anybody know how many artists in that day thought so highly of the Magnets of Men. He plays down their role in R&B history, and this is just the point I'm trying to make on this one.
Okay. While we were at this book signing for this, a gentleman came over to me and said, "Bob Angelucci." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm Russell Tompkins Jr." And he said, I absolutely loved you guys, the Magnificent Men. And Russell Tompkins Jr. is the lead singer for the Stylistics. And he had said, when I was 16 years old, he said, I used to go to the Uptown Theater to see you guys. And he said, in the mornings before I went to school, my dad made me go and clean toilets and mop floors at businesses. And after school, I had to do it as well. And he said, but I saved up money, and so on Saturdays, whenever you guys were at the Uptown Theater, I was there. He said, when I went there, he said, you were the guys that were my inspiration to become a singer. He said, I saw that guy up there with a trumpet player for the Magnificent Men and had this beautiful high voice. He said, I want to be that. He said, that's what inspired me to become a lead singer and a singer because of it. He had a beautiful, he still does have a beautiful high falsetto voice. But he had a lot of hit songs, Betcha by Golly Wah, and Could It Be Him Falling in Love, and numerous songs. Very nice person. I was really impressed by that. All right. And I did mention though about the DVD that they put out on us. That was good. The DVD's a little bit awkward. We were being filmed with video cameras that night, and when you try to loop the recorded band tracks with that, okay, with the visual, and you're only using video cameras, it gets tumbling from the electronics. It's just slightly off, so sometimes you might pick up on that if you're viewing the video. People ask me about that. I said, yeah, that's what it is. It is what it is. All right. At this time, I don't know, do you want me to do questions, comments, or anything right now, or do you want me to have Steve Rhodes?
Or they can tell us if they have any memories they want to share.
Yeah, okay. At this point, does anybody have any memories that they'd like to share about the, oh, okay. Yeah, somebody brought that up, right? They asked me about this. I'm sorry, before I get to that, but somebody asked me about this again tonight. I did bring it up before. Some of the rumors you hear. Yes, we did back up James Brown at the Apollo Theater, 12 midnight show, when we were in Magnificent Men. That was upon request. James Brown came in to see us in an earlier show that day. The biggest show at the Apollo was the 12 midnight show. And he came in that earlier that day at the 5 o'clock show, because when you're doing theaters for 2 weeks, you do four shows a day and 5 shows on the weekend, on Saturdays and Sundays. The biggest shows, or 4 shows on Saturdays and Sundays. But the midnight show is the biggest show by far at the Apollo. And so James Brown came in to see us. After the 5 o'clock show, he said, "Do you guys know any of my material?" And I said, "Yeah, we know that the Live at the Apollo album." And so I said, "What do you want to do?" And he said, "Well, I'd like to do the side that has Please, Please, Please on it." So we talked to the manager of the theater, and he okayed it. We did it. It came out. It was one of those things, everything worked fine. It went well. One of those nights we didn't make any mistakes. How lucky were we with that, nonetheless. But and other things, because people ask us these questions all the time about, they hear rumors. Is that so? Yeah, and I did mention before, and I'll mention this too for those who weren't here before. Yeah, one of our biggest fans is Sylvester Stallone. Okay, he's a big Magnet fan, and the boss is the other guy. Bruce Springsteen, yeah. We didn't know that, but there's pictures down the end there. They're paper pictures of. We used to do at Asbury Park on Sunday nights in the summer, called it the Summer Soul Night concerts. That was with like all the Motown acts and everything, and that's where Bruce Springsteen came to see us. That's how he became a fan. We found out about that later. Anyway, I'm starting to run a little bit short on time, so I did want to find out if anybody has any memories you want to share, or comments about the Raven or the Magnificent Men, or class act featuring Rita, or any questions you have for me.
Where were some of your album cover photos taken?
Where were they? Let's see. The first one was in New York City, of course, Volume 1. The second one was taken, let's see, that was the live album. That was done in New York City also. That was an indoor shot. The first album, we're climbing up a water tower, the ladders of a water tower. I didn't get it, but that's fine. I guess it's supposed to mean, they're on your way up. And the third album cover was done, I think that was done in New Jersey, right across the river. I don't remember just exactly where. The fourth album, Better Than 10 Cent Movie, that was done in Central Park. So that's where all those covers were from. Okay?
Bob, did you tell them about your induction into the Pennsylvania Music Hall of Fame?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you. On January 30th of 2020, okay, this is Central Pennsylvania Music Hall of Fame, okay, and it had just started at that time. The Magnificent Men were the first group to be nominated into the Musical Hall of Fame, and at the same time, Class Act featuring Rita was nominated for it as well that same evening. That's very flattering. I can't tell you, that's just wonderful. So that's what this is about. And it's just, if you want to come up and read all that, I don't have my glasses. Nonetheless, you're welcome to come up and look at that. But, yeah, so, as a picture of all the magnificent men, and our one manager that was still living, he has since then passed away. That's Frankie C. The other manager, Ron Gibbon, passed away before that, I'm sorry. But that's a picture of all the original men right there. Yeah.
If you were given a do-over in your musical life, is there anything you'd do over?
That's a loaded question. Probably so.
And I'm not going to get an answer. I'm not going to elaborate.
I think the one thing that I would have done differently, but it was not my call. It was that of our management firm. We had, when I was on the road, I became good friends with certain entertainers. And one of them was Smokey Robinson. And Smokey Robinson had said, Bob, do you like steak? We were both playing at the Uptown Theater. I said, yeah, I love steak. He said, I got a place. He said, I know the chef. It's, on top of the hotel in Philly on Sea Line Avenue. I'm going to take you to steak. He said, I want to talk to you about a few things. So we chatted. Great meal. Excellent. And he said, I want to talk to you about the possibility of maybe the Magnificent Men signing with Motown Records. And I said, well, wow, that's big. But I thought, okay. So he did ask us about, he said, there's some things that are happening in confidence at this point. I can say it now, but he said, I couldn't then. He said, we're building a new studio in Los Angeles called Golden World Studios. It'll be the biggest and the best of anything. He said, but we're going to be leaving Detroit, and some people are going to be left behind. They're going to be hurt by this move. But he said, but what we're doing is, I'm getting beat up because I don't have any white artists on the label. And he said, he said, I'll be very frank that Motown was formed for black artists and to commercialize black music so that we could cross over into the white market to get a broader spin of music on radio and TV, and also to make more money. So he said that was what the intent was. That was the same intent with the theaters. The chicken circuit was for black entertainers to entertain black audiences in their theaters and in their clubs. But he said, we thought you guys would be ideal because you guys are having a hard time, you have the same problem we had getting crossover to get played on white stations. You guys in the Magnet are having problems getting crossover to play on white stations. You have all the airplay you can get from black stations, but you're not. And we said we think we could, really make the band go. And he said we'll give you, an opportunity to, handle it, the recordings however you want. You want additional musicians on it. You just want yourselves. If you want to do your own material, if you want to do our material, doesn't matter. Okay. He said the only thing I will tell you is that should you sign, we guarantee you 2 #1 hits in the first year. I thought, boy, this is kind of overwhelming. So, and he said, oh, by the way, he said, Diana Ross just discovered, we're just going to sign them this week. She just discovered these 5 little kids. There's a family, they got this little kid and dances and sings like crazy. And we're going to sign them. Jackson 5, Michael Jackson. And they were talking to Dusty Springfield, but it never materialized. Well, I took it back to our management firm, and they didn't want to do it. I think part of it was constraints that they had already signed us with Mercury Records. And as a result of that, that's something that I don't care if I was signed with Mercury or not, I would have did everything in my power to change that go with Motown. They ended up signing a white group. Didn't last very long with them. They had 2 big #1 hits. It was Rare Earth. I just want to celebrate and get ready. Excuse me, I'm getting dry. Anyway, but that's what I probably would have done differently. Most of the things we had control over what we were doing, most of the time, but not all the time. I thought there were some things got really, when it came to one-nighters, it really got pretty extreme. I would have tried to tailor that. Wally can attest to that, because we were doing nothing more than getting on a bus and traveling from one state to another to get to one college concert to another. And that really gets old, but that is the case. I have water, honey.
Oh, okay, you're good.
Thank you. You're very sweet.
So I'll drink it.
You didn't see it. It's okay. Thank you for thinking of me. All right. Yes.
I'm sure there's obstacles to this, but what would have to be overcome to have Dave Zhang's documentary shown on that nice big screen there?
Legally, right now, that can't be done. That was to be premiered, by the way. That DVD was to be premiered at the Whitaker Center. And what we were going to do is they were going to show the documentary first, and then it would follow with a concert with Class Act and original members of the Magnificent Men.
I can't remember the date, I have it written down at home somewhere, but Dave, we had a focus group about that documentary in my living room.
Yeah.
He was there, a room full of people, some guy from Harrisburg and Dave, and there was about 10 people in my living room. And when that hour and a half was over, just spontaneous applause for about 3 minutes. Nothing, we just couldn't believe what was in there, and it's a shame.
That's the original. When
It's
the
a
first
shame
one.
that
Yeah,
not
the
more
first-
people have seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, right now, I know that legally I'm bound by. I do have to honor that side of it, and I do. So
We have to have somebody hit the lottery to pay those.
Hey, somebody hit the lottery could help Dave put that out. That'd be fine. The podcast, I'm sure, will be wonderful.
He spent 10 years on that.
More.
More than 10
Now,
years.
I've been working with him on the podcast for 10 years. And the DVD or movie is probably 15 or 17. And the cost of it for the movie, it's primarily stormy weather and not peace of mind. Misty and stormy weather are now a couple $100,000 for the music rights to use it.
Yeah, it's new information to me. I was here on real low end, it's at 50,000. Wow.
And we try to get it as an educational piece, and you don't have to abide by some of the copyrights.
Mhm.
And we as part of a Black History series,
Yes.
and about the crossover. And we
That
just
was
couldn't-
Dave Zhang's motivation.
Yes.
And plus his love for the Magmen.
Yes, correct. So we're hoping the podcast, it's basically all done except dropping in some music, and we can put all that music in the podcast because we're going to sell it or put it on like as education. So that's the
Oh
hope.
my gosh, awesome.
Yeah, I've heard outtakes and it's very good.
All the recordings you did for Capitol and Mercury in the studio, I know how hard it is to get something recorded to your satisfaction. What cut did you hear and play back to win? Man, that's what I want. What's your all-time favorite? Listening, hearing, knowing what you put into it, they got it right, and you got it right. What do you think the pinnacle of recording for the Magnificent Men in your ears?
There's a lot. Oh, gosh.
Pick one of those children out.
Well, my personal favorite is Peace of Mind. I just thought that that's such a great song, and it applies especially to what's happening in the world today.
Endless.
You know, and
I was just saying, it's age ageless. It's ageless.
Yeah, it is.
It's an ageless message. And Dave was only 16 when he wrote that.
Yeah, I think it was, I thought he was a little bit older, but,
Oh, okay, yeah, regardless.
yeah, I was,
1966.
yeah, it's a great song, and that was covered by a number of artists. I think 7 or 8 people now have covered that. Jerry Butler recorded it, but he kind of changed the lyrics somewhat. I like that, but out of all the recordings we've done, one of our favorite recording sessions had nothing to do with Capitol Records, had nothing to do with Mercury Records, had to do with something that we recorded locally in Columbia, PA, and that's the album 4 of the class of '60-something was in our band, and these most musicians. That was one of the best recordings ever done, with everything in it, the sound, the quality, the coordination of that. And the variety from one song to another. The choice of songs is like, you do a session like that. You're not just reading. Music to me has never been just reading notes, just learning parts, playing chords, or playing beats. There's much more to it, especially in recording, because recording is a totally different discipline than playing live. And so with that one, as far as recording.